Good morning, and thank you, President Starr, for those most generous words. May I just say what an honor it is to speak to you this morning on your first day of classes. Because this is a talk about time, I'd like to acknowledge that as we come here together today, we're on land that was home for 3,500 years to indigenous American people, including the Tonga, the Gabrielino, and the Serrano. To the class of 2023 and to our new transfer students, welcome to Pomona College. A great adventure awaits you, one whose twists and turns and whose ending you cannot yet imagine. Sometimes days or weeks will feel very long, I can assure you of that. But more likely than not, after the newness settles in a little bit, time will begin to move fast. The 4 years that most of you will spend here is actually a relatively brief expanse of time, and this morning I'd like to offer you a few thoughts on them. I, along with my friends and colleagues on this stage, are thrilled to work beside you as you shape this journey for yourselves. It's actually one of our most favorite things, and more on that in a minute. As a small placeholder in time, I hope you received a small gift from me as you came in today. If you didn't get one, please check again as you exit. It's a small gift, but it's a piece of something that's really important to me. I share it with you because I think it offers some interesting lessons in the liberal arts that are pertinent to considering how you might want to make use of your time here. I invite you to take it out of its little bag and hold it. This object is a fossil called the trilobite. It was one of the first animals to proliferate on Earth. And please feel free to Google it. I won't be offended, just don't do that. Your trilobite is 504 million years old. Just hold on to that thought for a minute. What you hold in your hands is an animal that is 500 million years old. In Earth terms, this beast is a mere youngster. It appeared after 89% of Earth's history had already elapsed. The last 500 plus million years, which constitute the entire history of animal life on Earth, represent only the most recent 11% of Earth's history and a far, far lesser proportion of the history of our universe. Your new friend, this trilobite, lived on an ancient seabed in a part of western Utah. Although animal life had just exploded onto the scene, another animal called Metaspergina, a primitive fish to which we may trace our own origins, swam above, periodically stopping to feed from the bottom with a mouth that did not yet contain jaws or teeth that would later lift our relatives to the top of the ecological pyramid. But our ancestors were there, if only the length of an index finger. The oceans teemed with life, and the dry lands were yet barren. Through coincidences of time and fate, the ancient seabeds in which your trilobite was buried are now on display in beautiful cross-section in the sides of a mountain range in Utah called the House Range. It is one of my favorite places on Earth, and you may feel free to Google that. I feel extremely lucky to have worked with Pomona College classes there for many years, including some of my friends and students who helped distribute these to you this morning. After the trilobites died, and before there was a mountain range for us to go and visit where we could find them, a lot happened. So let me quickly hit some highlights. First, these trilobites were buried under more and more and more layers of seafloor as seas came and went from the continent, and they eventually became embedded in the crust, ultimately reaching a depth of almost 4 miles. After 100 million years after their burial, let's just say that's the first 25% of their age, a volcanic island chain collided into nearby Nevada, causing great damage regionally, but these lucky passengers were able to escape destruction. Around that time, life was just beginning to move on land in a big way, and the continents were green for the very first time. At half their age, 251 million years ago, the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history occurred, wiping out 90% of species on Earth, including the last of the trilobites. They had a good run. They were on Earth for 250 million years, and fortunately your trilobites didn't have to take notice of that event. After almost 2/3 of their present age had elapsed, these trilobites almost got melted. This happened during the Jurassic period while the famous dinosaurs of Utah roamed above. The area became volcanically active and a big plug of magma worked its way up through the crust, feeding volcanic systems that were at the surface and now long extinct. Many trilobites in this layer were melted. Yours barely escaped again. At 55 million years ago, and at 90% of their present age, another collision on the west coast pushed these rocks up near the surface, but the trilobites still remained safely tucked underground. The first primates had just appeared. At about 10 million years ago, just 2% of the age of your trilobite, the spectacular mountains of the House Range began to be uplifted along deep faults in a process that continues through to this day. During this time, the entire evolutionary transition in our own group occurred, taking us from tree-dwelling apes to upright walking hominids with giant brains. Starting 4 million years ago, several dozen ice ages came and went. During the last ice age, a giant lake, Lake Bonneville, covered half of Utah and lapped onto the sides of the House Range. It was so big that it depressed the crust and affected the rotation of the Earth. After that lake receded, the big cats, the ground sloths, and the woolly mammoths died off. The lake's evaporated remains went on to form salt flats, and the forests that once hugged the shores crept upwards towards the cooler and wetter habitats of the peaks. Today, in the crest of the House Range, are found what are perhaps the most magnificent living things on Earth today, the ancient bristlecone pine trees. These wizened trees are the oldest living things yet discovered on the planet, with some individual trees more than 5,000 years old. To be clear, that's only 1,000 of 1% of the age of this trilobite. But yet, these trees have borne witness to the rise of civilization, the invention of writing, the Industrial Revolution, and so much more. These trees have offered me one of the most profoundly perspective-altering experiences that I've ever had. As I look across the landscape where they grow, I see undeniable signs that the landscape is evolving very rapidly in a geologic sense. Erosion, uplift, all occurring quickly. Yet sprinkled on this landscape, I see ancient trees, some of whom are older than the pyramids of Giza and still alive, still making new bark and new needles each year. Some of them died before the first Europeans came to this continent, yet they still stand rooted and upright in the rocks. Here, the deep and murky depths of human history collide with the unfathomable timescales of Earth, our incubator, our cradle, our home in a far, far older universe. So this is the perspective from which I speak to you when I remind you that 4 years is actually a relatively brief expanse of time. So transition to the present. 250 human generations have elapsed since the oldest presently living ancient bristlecone pine tree was sprouted. You were born, you worked your tail feathers off, and you fought through some impressive adversity. You've arrived here at Pomona College. You've had an incredible and sometimes challenging week already. I bet it feels to many of you like a whole lot longer than a week. But this will soon change, and time will begin to fly. You now find yourself in a different space, one that you have waited a long time to occupy. This is one with a lot of choices and a lot of opportunities. So how can you make the most of your time at Pomona? You made a choice to come here rather than a bigger place. So did we. We believe that a Pomona education is truly unique. Why? We believe that the relationships that you will forge here can fundamentally transform and elevate your learning experience. Relationships with your sponsors, with your residence hall staff, and with student affairs. Relationships with dining hall staff, housekeepers, and groundskeepers who truly make this place run, and without whom we would come to a screeching halt. Relationships among yourselves, and relationships with academic staff, including the faculty. So as your academic experience begins today, I'd like to suggest to you that getting to know your faculty is a crucial part of making use of your time here. So let me take a few minutes to introduce this truly remarkable group of people sitting behind me, whom I'm proud to call my friends and colleagues. And there are 5 things that I would like you to know. Number 1, okay, this is a little bit of an awkward transition because I've just been talking to you about fossils. Make the joke here, but that's just too obvious. And besides, we don't feel like fossils. We feel like we're still new. This is my 17th year at Pomona College, and I still remember sitting on this stage for the very first time. You know why? It's you that keep us feeling young. And in that way, I suppose we might be more like vampires. Let me be absolutely clear. We're here because we simply adore working with you. You blow our minds. And if we can blow yours once or twice while you're here, there's hardly a better feeling that we know. We get out of bed in the morning excited to come and engage in mental gymnastics with you. These people behind me are some of the smartest people I know, but to a person, they have immense respect for your intelligence. In your time here, you'll push us outside of our normal modes of thinking and change the way that we approach questions. It's going to be a different kind of relationship, and each one with each faculty member will be different. But please know that you will develop the kind of relationships here that don't stop at graduation, but are lifelong. You might find that some of us here on this stage will attend your weddings. Number 2, we, at least some of us, struggle with imposter syndrome sometimes too. I might be fighting it right now at this very moment, so I can't tell you with any moral authority to just get over it. But you have to do your best to fight it. Let me take this moment to look you all collectively in the eye and tell you, you deserve to be here. No matter where you come from or what you think of yourself, you are deeply, deeply impressive people. We have a pretty darn professional admissions outfit, and I have the previous 16 years of experience to go on here, so I'm not bluffing. No, I don't know you yet, but I can't wait to, because I know that you are not that one exception. You belong here. Number 3, no surprise, but many of us proudly identify as geeks. We're so enthusiastic about what we do and the opportunity to share that creative experience with you that we're content to spend the rest of our careers in college. Like you, when we chose that college, the people behind me had choices about where they wanted to go. They might have a bit more time and opportunity to get some more creative work done at a bigger school with less time spent in the classroom, the lab, the studio, or the athletic field. But that's not what we want. What we want is to help you find your passion and to get deeply, deeply, deeply into the weeds with you. And we can help, and you can help us make connections across different disciplines. We all enjoy the opportunity to teach more broadly than we would at a big university, to see the connections among different disciplines, how the whole picture, or at least a big corner of it, fits together. You'll be integral to this process more than you know. Trust me. Number 4, to state the obvious, our group is not as diverse as yours. We're making progress, but it moves more slowly than we like. Each entering class of students stays about 4 years, but each entering group of faculty stays 20, 30, or 40 years. We're lagging behind you without doubt, but let me assure you that the people on this stage are committed to making Pomona College an equitable and welcoming place for all humankind. Please know that our work is in progress. And when you meet a faculty member who's been here for a while, and that faculty member is a person of color, a non-heteronormative or genderqueer person, or a woman, please know that these members of our faculty have borne more than their fair share of hard work. But it is their commitment to this place and their devotion to you that has allowed Pomona to transform and rise. Under the leadership of President Starr, we're on the way to being closer to where we want to be. Number 5, we would like to ask a few things of you. This isn't about working hard or doing your homework. These things are up to you now. Our asks are a little bit different. We would ask you to bear in mind that your perspectives are each unique, and it is through sharing them that we may understand each other and our world a little better. Please, we ask you to be bold in envisioning your own education. Please try, even if it's just for a minute, to open your mind to the possibility that what you may be doing in 10 years might be completely different from anything you've done before or anything you currently imagine yourself doing, and that it could be 10 times more fun than you think. Please dive into the curriculum. Use your opportunities to take courses and disciplines you didn't have access to in high school. Check your expectations at the door and open your mind. You might learn something that changes your outlook or even your life. Try, please try, not to worry so much about grades. In our rubrics, you'll see that we're actually very proud of B-level work. B-level work is an accomplishment. And please remember that you do not have to do everything. Many of you are very used to doing everything. It's hard to turn down fun opportunities, and it's made many of you well-rounded students that you are today. But remember, here, it's important not to stretch yourself too thin. Definitely get out there and explore. Find and do the things that are meaningful to you, but don't do stuff just to do it. Those days are behind you. And most importantly, please be mindful and caring to those around you. The weeks ahead will bring many new experiences and challenges. Remember that we live in a very special community, and how you approach your life here has consequences for those around you. And please remember to laugh. I can't stress the importance of laughter enough. So, that's the present. That's where you are now. I'd like to return briefly to the past and then offer some thoughts on the future. I received my first fossil trilobite, the same one that you have here, the same species, from my mother when I was a mere 5 years old. She was on a trip, and she called home to tell me what an amazing present she had for me. I was impatient as usual, and I forced the info out of her. It was a trilobite. Having no idea what that was, and in the pre-web era, I went out of the house to find a dictionary, and in that dictionary, I found a picture. It was a little line drawing. How cool, I thought. Of course, I imagined it was about this big. But when it came to me, fingernail-sized, I was not disappointed. I was entranced. The antiquity, the little eyes, the whole animal, the abyss of time that suddenly seemed knowable through this little passenger of eons. Although I'm presently living my 5-year-old self's dream, I didn't actually set out to do that. I played with very many satisfying disciplines: classics, physics, engineering, anthropology, history, and art history. It was a faculty member who opened my eyes to deep Earth history, having been primed all those years ago by my dear mom. Ultimately, I went on to do a PhD thesis on those ancient seafloors from which this trilobite came. I was asking some different kinds of questions, but I loved those little trilobites, and they were crawling all over the ground in some spots, and they kept staring up at me with their cute little eyes lined with thousands of mineral lenses. And I want to tell you that one day something just clicked. That trilobite that you hold gave me an answer to a question that I didn't yet know how to ask, and one that blew the doors off the hinges in the halls of my inquiry. More and more questions opened. They beckoned. They formed a fountain of other deeper questions from which I am still drinking today. I've had the opportunity to travel the world, to make incredible friends and colleagues on different continents, and to form lasting bonds with Pomona students pursuing these questions out in various and spectacular parts of the world. So for me, I feel like this trilobite is a true liberal arts object. Through it, I'm connected to my colleagues on this stage in biology and chemistry and neuroscience, physics and astronomy, and also connected with colleagues in philosophy, in art history and studio art, literature, environmental analysis, classics, and also anthropology, for it was the indigenous people who first collected trilobites from the House Range, recognized that they were special, and took care to traffic them around the West, confusing future generations of geologists. As our own President Starr reminds us, the essence of a Pomona education is the quest to understand what it is that makes us human. And among humans, there are few who I feel more grateful to than I do to my mother, who's done lots of wonderful things for me, including changing the course of my life with this little gift. She never mentioned it to me, but I have the sense that, like a lot of women of her generation, she sacrificed a lot for my sister and I. But it was all going to work out well for my mom because she had a grand plan for her early retirement. When that day came, though, the ravages of dementia were already upon her. And in retrospect, it became clear that they had been with her for some time already. Retirement wasn't to be the expansive feast of life experiences that she'd imagined and carefully planned. Instead, it became a prison of the mind. She suffered with incredible dignity and humanity until the day that early onset Alzheimer's took her life. But there's a lesson here, and for me, it's an immensely clarifying one, and that's why I want to share it with you. That lesson is, don't put off doing things that are deeply satisfying to you until some future date. A liberal arts education gives you the opportunity to design your life in a way that you can do something satisfying and rewarding and beneficial to people around you almost every day of your life. And we, my friends here on the stage and I, we're here to help you discover what that is. But you must discover it yourself. In 4 years, it's not a lot of time. On that note, I'll mention that this little trilobite also connects us to the future. Each one of these fossils is unique, but they have some fundamental attributes in common. Each one is a different weight, but each one is made of limestone, and 44% of the weight of limestone is carbon dioxide. To be perfectly clear, almost half the weight of the object you hold in your hand is a dense concentration of virtually weightless CO2 that was spat out of volcanoes more than 500 million years ago, that slowly reacted with minerals and soil, and then was flushed to the ocean, and probably made its way around the biosphere a few times before it ultimately got locked up in the rock where it has remained. The very, very slow formation of limestone, of oil, of coal, and of natural gas are the only ways that carbon dioxide is naturally removed from the atmosphere and locked away over geologic timescales. And while those processes slowly scrape on in the background today, our species has taken the center stage. Our unprecedented talents as humans include identifying these pockets of carbon, extracting them, and combusting them to make energy and concrete. This is how modern civilization was built. There's nothing intrinsically wrong or immoral about that necessarily, but we wouldn't want to go backwards. And that's exactly what's at risk. Pomona College graduate Roger Revelle from the class of 1929 was the first scientist to warn that our giant carbon party might have undesirable consequences for the climate system. He was sufficiently concerned that he engaged a scientist named Charles Keating and asked him to set up the CO2 observatory at Mauna Loa in Hawaii to measure the change, now known as the famous Keeling curve, or simply the hockey stick. Revelle passed on his sense of urgency to the late oceanographer Wally Broecker, who was the preeminent oceanographer of the 20th century, and he in turn instructed a student named Al Gore, who went on to make a film about this issue. There is no doubt that climate change is the single biggest issue facing society today. Here's the thing about climate change, and it cuts back to that deep sense of time. Two things, actually. Number one, the finite amount of change that humans are producing in the atmosphere is tiny. CO2 is measured in parts per million, but accordingly, small changes in CO2 have the capacity to exert big changes on the greenhouse effect and thereby upon climate. Our geologic record tells us that the difference between the last ice age and the warm interglacial climate of the last 10,000 years was scarcely 100 parts per million. 100 parts per million is the difference between ice covering vast quantities of North America, Europe, and Asia when woolly mammoths and saber-toothed cats were running around Claremont, right here in Claremont, versus the kind of moderate climate that your grandparents knew in their youth. And we've now pushed that change over 135 parts per million on top of that, and that becomes a very significant difference, even though, in a finite sense, the parts per million difference is very small. Number two, the timescale over which these changes are occurring is unprecedented in the geologic record. Natural climate cycles? Yes, we have great records. Earth has been through 4 major ice ages in the last 500,000 years, and the amount of CO2 today is literally off the charts of those natural variations. Has CO2 ever been this high? Most definitely it has, but we've never seen a shift that's so rapid. Remember, natural processes are much slower at moving carbon around the world, in and out of the atmosphere, and that's a big reason why it's hard for us to forecast what comes next. But we can look to Earth's history for analogs. Do we want to live in a world where it's too hot for ice and snow in places where it used to fall? Where low-lying coastal areas and cities are flooded, freshwater resources are strained, and palm trees and crocodiles live north of the Arctic Circle? Our species is remarkable in many ways. We've created this problem, and there is absolutely no doubt that we can get ourselves out of it. There will be opportunities for members of this class to go out into the world and make change. The time is right. I know, sometimes it feels like there's nothing we can do, But in the past year and a half, much of the world's attention, mine included, has been captured by a remarkable 16-year-old Greta Thunberg of Sweden, whose latest book is titled, "No One is Too Small to Make a Difference." I strongly encourage you to read it, as it is truly empowering. She sees her Asperger's syndrome as an advantage, not a deficit. She's lived by example, and more importantly, she's generated a huge amount of momentum on this issue with quotable memes such as this one. Adults keep saying that we owe it to the young people to give them hope. But I don't want your hope. I want you to act as if the house is on fire, because it is. As Greta now makes her way across the Western Hemisphere, moving from a UN climate summit in New York to one in Chile, I want to share some snippets of her wisdom with you. There's some very simple things that you can do today. You can reduce the amount of meat that you consume. The meat industry is very carbon and water intensive. If everyone living in the US went meatless for just one day of the week for a whole year, it would be the equivalent of taking 500,000 cars off the road and save 100 billion gallons of water. That's doable. That's something to think about, and these savings come into action with every choice you make. You can try to be intentional about what you consume. Not just food, but all kinds of products. Carry a reusable water bottle and avoid single-use plastics as much as you can. Be mindful of the carbon-intensive network of ships, trains, trucks, and planes that move our stuff to markets. Buy local when you can, skip the overnight delivery when you can, and make considerate choices about how you consume. Sometimes we all need a long shower, but go for a short one when you can swing it. And bam, you've just made some change. As Greta's example reminds us, that's a reason for optimism, and it's within our grasp. This year, I'll be asking for your help in trying to make more change on this issue on our campus, not only for Pomona, but for each of you and for the values that you'll carry with you out into the world when those 4 years are up. I know that you'll make the most of them, as do my thoughtful, eager, and reverent colleagues on the stage with me. We're delighted to have you here. We're excited to share our passions with you, and we are most eager to discover where your passions lie. It is with a full heart that I welcome you to the academic family of Pomona College.